If you're thinking about investing in a franchise, stop. Do not do it until you understand the history of franchising, because that history is actually pretty bloody wild. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the 5 most important events in the history of franchising. Lessons you must learn from and apply to your own business if you're hoping to end up making a franchise fortune. G'day, my name's Brent Dowling. Now, I'm not the smartest bloke in this industry, but I have used these lessons to help me successfully develop over 85 franchise brands, become a multi-brand franchisor and franchisee, and sell my first franchise business to private equity. And today, we're going to learn those lessons again as we break down real events, factual, undeniable moments in franchising to show you exactly what separates a winning investment from a costly mistake. Today you're going to learn from stories of dark politicians who scam franchisees, huge brands that went from Wall Street darling to burning in bankruptcy hell, and how one franchise minted an army of franchise millionaires and paved the way for all good franchisors to follow. Let's get stuck into it. Most people think the history of franchising begins with this: a McDonald's hamburger. But if you think the history of franchising starts with Ray Kroc and his founding of the McDonald's empire, you're wrong. That is actually f***ing disgusting. The first true American franchisor was Martha Matilda Harper, a former servant who changed the game in the late 1800s. Martha was born into poverty. She worked as a servant, but she had a secret weapon, a hair tonic formula given to her by her doctor. Now, instead of just selling the tonic, she built a business system and taught others how to run it. And by 1921, she had 350 franchise locations. And by 1950, she had 500 locations worldwide. Today's first lesson: successful franchises are built on strong systems. Harper didn't just sell a product. She created a system that turned people into successful business owners. The takeaway? When looking at a franchise today, ask the existing franchisees. Does the brand actually empower its franchisees with training, resources, and a proven model? Without these, you're not really buying a franchise. You're just buying a logo and a dream. Now, let's take a little step forward into the 1960s, where franchising was exploding. Everyone saw McDonald's and KFC blowing up, and suddenly every man and his dog was selling franchises. Hundreds of new franchisors entered the market. Everyone thought that they were going to get rich from owning a franchise. Many rushed in without doing due diligence. But then came the Minnie's Pearl Chicken disaster, one of the biggest franchise scams of all time. You see, a politician with no restaurant experience licensed out 300 franchise locations in just 2 years. But there was no real system, no supply chain, no operational model. And by 1970, half the stores had already closed. It collapsed in an SEC investigation, lawsuits, and massive losses for franchise owners. So what's lesson number 2? Not all fast-growing franchises are good investments. Before you jump on a franchise opportunity because a franchise consultant tells you how hot the brand is, remember the case study of Minnie's Chicken. And if the brand you're considering is growing at breakneck speed, ask, do they really have the infrastructure to support the growth? Are the franchisees actually making money? Or are they just selling territories as fast as they can with no real long-term plan? So there's only a couple locations here in Colorado now?
Yeah.
Only 4. Right at the turn of the millennium, Krispy Kreme was a Wall Street darling. After going public in 2000, the stock boomed and the brand started franchising aggressively. I mean, dude, that is so good. But then it all came crashing down. The brand started to franchise too aggressively, especially into smaller markets, and franchisees started losing money. And how did the franchisor react? It manipulated its financials to hide declining store sales. The stock plummeted 80% and dozens of franchisees went bankrupt. Today's third lesson: big franchise brands aren't always best. Just because a brand is a large national success and it's actually available in your market doesn't mean it's free of risk or the right brand for you. If you're evaluating a large franchisor, don't skip through due diligence. Use a proven franchise consultant to help evaluate the brand, hire a franchise attorney to review the disclosure document, And most importantly, call as many franchisees as you can get a hold of. After the scams of the 60s and 70s, the government stepped in. In 1978, the FTC created the franchise rule, which basically forced franchisors to start disclosing real data to buyers. Data? Data. Americans say data. I'll say it with data. Actually, no, that sounds stupid. But that wasn't enough to prevent perhaps the most notorious franchise collapse of the modern era. We're here today at what was once the pride and joy of the Quiznos empire, the original location. And this shadow of a sign behind me should serve now as a foreshadowing to any franchisor who attempts to prioritize their own profitability ahead of franchisees. You see, in the early 2000s, Quiznos was taking on Subway with its toasted subs and slick advertising. But behind the scenes, the franchisor was squeezing the franchisees dry. The franchisor forced franchisees to buy supplies and food at massively marked up prices from corporate-controlled suppliers. They made more selling supplies than they did from franchise royalties, so they didn't seem to care too much about franchisee profitability. As franchisee margins shrank, stores started shutting down left and right. Sure enough, a class action lawsuit exposed predatory practices from the franchisor, and Quiznos went bankrupt. So what's lesson number 4? Understand the fees you're paying to the franchisor. Remember that FTC rule from 1978, where franchisors were forced to start disclosing data? It really sounds like a baby when I think about it. Data. The way you say it. Data. It's now executed through what's called a franchise disclosure document. And in that document, you can see what royalty and other fees you're required to pay. You can also see what products the franchisor requires you to buy from them. Look at these items and compare them to market price. This will teach you if they're out to gouge you or not. Even 1 to 2% off the bottom line can be the difference between success and failure. Now, not all great franchise lessons come from disasters. When we look at Anytime Fitness, we'll see a brand that took a different approach to growth, and in doing so, became one of the most successful franchises in the world. Hi, how you going? Good. Are we able to get a day pass today?
Yeah, no worries.
Awesome. Over the years, they focused on steady franchise expansion, not unsupported, reckless growth. They created a franchisee-first culture, implementing fixed royalty structures to help franchisee profitability. They adapted early to industry shifts. For instance, they added 24/7 keycard access before franchise competitors did. They developed personal training and smart coaching technologies to differentiate the competition and drive further franchisee revenue. And as a result, they hit 5,000 plus locations, with some of the best franchisee satisfaction rates in the industry. And 60% of owners own multiple locations. So our final lesson from history today. Look for franchises where existing owners are reinvesting and scaling into multiple units. Here's the reality. Every franchise I've ever been involved with that created real wealth for its owners had one thing in common. Franchisees weren't just surviving, they were thriving and reinvesting their profits into opening more locations. In fact, I believe multi-unit expansion from existing owners is the single biggest indicator of a high-performing franchise system. Because let's face it, if franchisees are only opening one location and never coming back for a second, that's a huge red flag about the model's true profitability. Take Anytime Fitness. They invested in technology, future-proofed the brand, and focused relentlessly on making their franchisees profitable. So when you're evaluating a franchise, ask, are existing owners expanding? Because if they are, chances are there's good money to be made. The only problem with brands like Anytime Fitness? With 5,000 locations, it's very unlikely your territory is available. So if you want to get ahead of the next franchise goldmine before the rest of the world finds out, hit subscribe and follow along. We'll be dropping our first under-the-radar franchise pick in the next video.